There's a specific kind of joy that comes with buying your dream car. Like, the real dream, not the 2006 Honda Accord that won't explode on the highway kind. I'm talking about the kind of car you hang posters of as a teenager, the one you promised yourself you'd buy when things finally get better. Well, at 32, after slogging through more unpaid overtime than a junior lawyer in hell, better finally showed up in the form of a 2024 Alpine white BMW M3, twin-turbocharged and gleaming like a pearl made of pure dopamine. I'd had it for 72 hours. 3 glorious, immaculate days. I parked it like it was the Hope Diamond, double-checked the locks, so often my key fob battery started begging for mercy, and I may or may not have spent an hour polishing invisible specks off the hood. I was that guy, and for once in my life, I didn't even feel bad about it. Enter Linda Hutchinson, or, as I would come to know her, the final boss of suburban authoritarianism. I met her the way all great horror stories begin, through a window. I was mid-sip on my morning coffee, still in boxers and a faded t-shirt from college that had, "I regret nothing," in peeling letters across the front. And that's when I saw her. A woman in her mid-50s, platinum perm so tight it probably whistled in the wind, striding down the sidewalk like she was Caesar returning to Rome. Except, with a clipboard and a thirst for chaos. She wasn't just walking by. She was stalking my car. She slowed, stared, then, without so much as a glance around, ran her keys along the side of my brand new BMW like she was Zorro, and my rear quarter panel had insulted her honor. Metal met metal in a shriek that I felt in my teeth. I stood there, coffee mug frozen midair, watching the world's most entitled vandal perform her morning ritual as if this were just normal. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. My brain short-circuited like a Windows 98 crash screen. My dream car, the one I'd worked overtime weekends for, was now sporting a foot-long, ego-driven badge of honor courtesy of the HOA president. Because, of course, Linda didn't even look back. She marched off toward her house, clipboard swinging under her arm like a Roman shield, with the smug satisfaction of someone who thought they had just upheld the divine suburban order. Meanwhile, I stood there, barefoot, half-dressed, utterly stunned, as sunlight glinted off the fresh wound in the paint like a personal insult from God. You know that moment in movies where the protagonist quietly vows revenge? Cue that scene. But instead of a dramatic soundtrack, I had a burnt piece of toast popping out of the toaster like a punchline to the cruelest joke in the world. Let me describe Linda more vividly, because you need to understand the creature we're dealing with. Picture someone who treats HOA bylaws like gospel and views property lines like borders of a feudal kingdom. She drove a beige Honda Civic that sounded like it resented being driven, had resting disapproval face, and carried a clipboard like it was issued by some federal agency with unchecked power. Linda didn't live in the neighborhood. She ruled it. My neighbor Jake, the friendly guy 2 doors down, had warned me about her when I first moved into Maple Heights. She's something, he'd said with a sympathetic wince. Thinks this place is Buckingham Palace. You'll see. I thought he was exaggerating. Oh, sweet naive past me. If only I'd known. Jake had told me about violations people got for holiday lights being too festive, and how Linda once threatened to fine a family for letting their kids' birthday balloons touch the mailbox. But no one had mentioned she moonlighted as the Batman of vehicle vandalism. And this wasn't just a scratch. No, Linda had committed a full-on surgical strike. The gouge ran from the rear door handle all the way to the back bumper, deep enough to make insurance adjusters weep and body shop owners salivate. This wasn't an accident. This was intentional, the kind of calculated damage that made you want to write an angry Yelp review for humanity. I stared at my car like it had just told me it was breaking up with me. I mean, sure, relationships are temporary, but a BMW M3? That's forever. So there I was, standing in my driveway, heart racing, caffeine abandoned, with 2 options. I could go the bureaucratic route, police reports, insurance claims, photos, emails, repair estimates, and months of back and forth with people who'd asked me the same question 17 times while misspelling my name. Or I could take the path less traveled. The creative path. You see, What Linda didn't know was that I'd spent a decade in corporate consulting, fending off C-suite egos and navigating more passive-aggressive power struggles than a Real Housewives reunion. If there was one thing I knew how to do, it was play the long game against petty tyrants. And oh, Linda. Sweet, clipboard-wielding Linda. She'd just keyed the wrong car. Literally. I hadn't even finished mourning the scratch when I made my decision. I went inside, swapped the I regret nothing shirt for a clean polo, pulled on some jeans, and headed out the door like I was suiting up for battle. Because let's face it, this wasn't going to be a conversation. It was going to be a showdown. Linda's house was only 4 doors down, but the walk there felt like a hike through enemy territory. Perfectly aligned garden gnomes glared at me with judgment. Lawn flamingos stood as silent witnesses. Every hedge looked trimmed by laser-guided shears. It was like I'd stepped into a HOA simulation, where conformity was king and deviation was a war crime. And there she was, Linda Hutchinson, standing in her driveway as if she'd been expecting me. Clipboard pressed to her chest like a bulletproof vest, beige Civic glinting beside her like a loyal steed of mediocrity. She gave off the vibe of someone who watched The Crown and thought it was a documentary about how to run an HOA. Linda Hutchinson, I presume? I called out, voice calm but simmering like a kettle 2 seconds before it whistles. She looked up with a smile, so fake it should have come with a warning label. Oh, you must be the new homeowner at 47B, she said, like she was welcoming me to a cult. I was just finishing my morning property inspection. Property inspection. Right. She said it like she worked for NASA and was checking for launch pad malfunctions, not nitpicking how many blades of grass were sticking out of a mulch line. I saw you inspecting something. All right, I said, keeping my voice light, friendly. Mind if I ask what kind of violation requires scratching the hell out of a BMW? Linda blinked. Once. Twice. Then her expression smoothed out like she'd just flicked the switch from oops to gaslight mode. Expert. Scratching, she echoed, eyebrows lifting as if I'd just accused her of witchcraft. I didn't see any scratching. What are you talking about? I pointed toward my driveway. The car. The giant scratch. The one you gave it this morning. I watched you from my kitchen window. Her eyes narrowed just a hair, just enough for me to know she knew exactly what I was talking about. Oh dear, she said, with the faux concern of a crocodile at a duckling parade. That's so unfortunate. Are you sure it wasn't a shopping cart? Or perhaps a branch? Yes, Linda. Because branches love to drag themselves perfectly horizontally across car panels. I wasn't going to play coy, but I also wasn't about to go nuclear right away. This was chess, not checkers. I guess these things happen, I said, hands in my pockets. But let's talk about what you noticed during your inspection. Her face lit up like a kid in a candy store. Well, for starters, your vehicle was parked approximately 0.3 inches outside the designated space. According to Section 47C of the HOA bylaws, all cars must be fully within the painted boundaries at all times. She said 0.3 inches like it was a felony. Like I'd just embezzled funds and hidden the evidence under my windshield wipers. You measured? I asked, arching a brow. I always carry a measuring tape, she replied proudly, as if that was a normal thing for a human adult to say. And what else? I prompted. Her eyes flicked to her clipboard like it was a spell book. Your mailbox numbers are the wrong gold. They're bright gold, not antique gold. And your garbage cans were still visible from the street at 7:15 this morning. I was impressed. Not in the good way. More in the this woman is one step from building a secret prison under her begonias kind of way. Sounds serious, I said. Should I expect a fine? Her smile sharpened. Well, normally it would be $200 per infraction, but I'm willing to let it go this time. If we can come to an understanding. That's when it hit me. This wasn't random. The scratch wasn't a tantrum. It was a tactic. Linda had keyed my car as leverage, damaged something expensive so she could dangle forgiveness in exchange for compliance. This was HOA extortion dressed up in a pearl necklace and orthopedic shoes. I see, I said, nodding slowly. And what about the car? Linda shrugged. What car? Oh, the one with a brand new $3,000 scar. The one you just happened to walk past during your inspection. She had the audacity, The unfiltered, full-fat audacity to squint at my driveway like she didn't remember it existed. "Well," she said, voice syrupy sweet, "if there's damage, I certainly didn't see it. You know how careless people can be. Keys, shopping carts, teenagers." I wanted to clap. Not out of approval, out of sheer disbelief. The woman could have given a TED Talk titled How to Gaslight Your Neighbors and still get invited to book club. "Sure," I said, smiling back. Completely random. Nothing suspicious about it at all. Linda's face didn't move, but I saw it in her eyes. She knew she'd messed with the wrong neighbor. She was playing HOA Monopoly while I was busy drafting risk mitigation strategies in real life. And just like that, the game had begun. I've seen actors in community theater productions pull off more believable performances than what Linda tried next. She stepped forward, clipboard still in hand like a security blanket, and peered at my car with the kind of exaggerated squint people reserve for solar eclipses or magic eye posters. "Oh my," she said, with the world's most disingenuous gasp. "That is unfortunate. Was it always like that?" If I didn't know better, I'd think she was auditioning for a part in CSI. Suburbia, the role of woman pretending not to see the thing she clearly caused. "It happened this morning," I replied, my voice pleasant and calm. "Roughly 10 minutes after your inspection began. You know, when you were doing your civic duty." She turned to me with wide, innocent eyes, the kind usually reserved for toddlers who've just spilled finger paint on the cat. "Oh, I had no idea. That could have been anyone. Maybe a jogger with keys. Or a dog leash with a sharp clasp. Or a meteor with attitude." I offered helpfully. She gave me a tight-lipped smile. "I'm just saying, cars get scratched. Especially luxury ones. They attract attention. Right. Because buying a car I love is clearly asking for it." "Sure," I said. "And insurance companies are just so understanding about luxury vehicle claims these days. I'm sure they'll take it in stride, especially once they review the neighborhood surveillance footage." That was my first jab, and I landed it squarely. Her posture shifted, just slightly, but enough. She blinked, then gave a nervous glance toward her house, where no less than 4 security cameras dotted her roofline like eyes on a spider. "Oh," I added, "and I should probably mention, my neighbor Jake saw you out there too. You know Jake? Big guy, runs in the mornings? He was heading out to work and said he noticed you, very close to my car, with your keys out." Linda's clipboard hand twitched. I thought I saw her knuckles go white, though it was hard to tell against the beige-on-beige aesthetic she had going on. "I really don't think this is necessary," she said, but her voice had lost its polished edge. "No need to make a federal case out of a scratch." "Exactly," I agreed. "Just a simple matter, easily resolved. I mean, if the security footage confirms it was an accident, we're good, right?" She hesitated, and in that hesitation, I saw it. Fear. Not of being caught. Linda was too arrogant for that, but of losing control. Of being outmaneuvered in her own kingdom. "I'm sure your insurance will take care of it," she said, suddenly fascinated with a spot on her clipboard that didn't exist. "No need to involve outside parties." "You're right," I said. "Although they do require a police report. Standard procedure." And the adjuster said they might need statements from any potential witnesses. They're very thorough with claims over $1,000. That was a lie. I hadn't called anyone yet. But Linda didn't know that. She was unraveling faster than a dollar store sweater. Her jaw clenched. Her left eye twitched. Somewhere inside her head, her little HOA gears were turning, calculating how much damage control this would cost, financially, socially, politically. "Perhaps," she said slowly, "we could discuss a solution privately, between neighbors." Now we were getting somewhere. "Oh," I asked, cocking an eyebrow. "What kind of solution did you have in mind?" "Waiving the parking fine you invented this morning." Her laugh was brittle. "Well, that would be a start. Perhaps even assistance with the repair? The HOA does have a discretionary fund for small community-related emergencies. We don't usually use it for things like this, but given the confusion, she was trying to spin this like it was a neighborly misunderstanding. Like she hadn't marched over to my property, performed unauthorized auto surgery with her house keys, and then tried to extort me over a garbage can. "Amazing," I said. The HOA is so generous and proactive and community-oriented. Her smile was made of pure fiberglass, shiny, fake, and likely toxic under pressure. We try. Well then, I said brightly, I'd hate to delay your next inspection. I'll expect a formal letter regarding the repair reimbursement by tomorrow morning. And maybe you can go ahead and cancel the violation notice, since it was clearly part of the confusion. She nodded stiffly. Of course. Oh, and Linda? She paused. I'll still be filing a police report. Insurance insists. I walked away before she could answer, but I could feel the heat of her glare on my back like a sun lamp on max setting. Her clipboard didn't make a sound, but I imagined it silently screaming into the void. Linda was sweating. Not visibly. No, she would never allow something so pedestrian as perspiration to show, but I could feel the shift. Her tone, her posture, the way her eyes darted from camera to clipboard like she was scanning for an eject button on reality. It was all unraveling. And I was just getting warmed up. You know what? I said, pausing halfway back to my driveway like I'd just had a sudden, helpful idea. I should probably let the neighbors know, just in case. We wouldn't want anyone else's car getting randomly attacked by rogue keys. I mean, what if someone else is next? Mrs. Patterson's Lexus? Or that brand new Tesla in 52A? Linda froze. You could almost hear her thoughts skidding across the panic highway. She was already picturing an HOA mutiny, porch pitchforks, overturned flamingo lawn decor, residents gasp attending board meetings. That's really not necessary, she said, her voice tight as a piano wire. We don't want to cause a panic over a simple, alleged incident. Oh, absolutely, I said, nodding in mock agreement. But as a good neighbor, I feel obligated. What if this scratcher strikes again and no one warned them? I'd never forgive myself. She looked like she was about to implode into beige dust. I suppose, she began, carefully, we could resolve this discreetly. I'm sure we can reach an agreement. And there it was. The unholy HOA trinity of words. Resolve, discreetly, and agreement. Suburban speak for please don't ruin my little empire. I crossed my arms. I'm listening. She glanced around the street. No one in sight, but her paranoia didn't care. Perhaps the fine could be waived. As a courtesy. Waived? I asked, eyes wide. Linda, that was a $200 fine for an absolutely devastating parking offense. Are you sure the HOA can withstand that level of regulatory neglect? Her eye twitched. And I suppose, she muttered, as if it pained her soul, we could also consider a reimbursement from the discretionary fund. Quietly. She said quietly, like it was a prayer. This was damage control disguised as generosity, and it was pathetic. Beautifully pathetic. But that's only for emergency community issues, right? I asked. You'd have to call this an emergency. Does car vandalism count as an emergency? Her jaw clenched. Under subsection 14b, the HOA president may approve discretionary spending up to $5,000 in cases that impact community property value. I let the silence sit there. The trap was already closed, but I wanted her to feel the bars. Sounds like a generous use of funds, I said finally. But, of course, I'd still need a case number for the insurance. Police report, timeline, witnesses, standard stuff. She was choking on her own panic now, trying to smile while her mouth tasted like defeat. Wouldn't it be easier for both of us to settle this without getting the police involved? Easier, I repeated. Maybe, but not smarter. Insurance fraud is serious. Wouldn't want anyone questioning how HOA funds are being used, right? She went still. That hit the nerve I was aiming for. Because this wasn't just about a scratch anymore. It was about her control, her reputation, her little suburban throne. I suppose, she said, voice as brittle as a communion wafer, we could frame this as a preventative repair. For the good of the community. Brilliant idea, I said, beaming. I mean, if the HOA lets rogue scratches bring down the whole neighborhood's curb appeal, what message are we sending? Chaos. Anarchy. Metallic distress. Linda exhaled like a dying balloon. You want it repaired where? BMW dealership, I said cheerfully. Not one of those we fix it in your garage places. It's gotta be OEM quality. Paint matched, blended, warranted. My car's not getting a patch job from Bob's Discount Buff and Coat. Her lips pressed into a line so thin I thought she might disappear entirely. Fine, if you provide an estimate. Oh, already did, I said. Sent photos to Munich Motors. They emailed me a quote this morning. $3,247 with tax. They can slot me in next Tuesday, if you call with payment info today. Linda visibly staggered. If my math was right, her brain had just hit the critical damage threshold. And, I added smoothly, I'll need a written apology. That finally broke her poker face. Eh, what? Not to me, I said. That would be awkward. No, an apology to the neighborhood. For the aggressive enforcement methods and any confusion caused by recent interactions. Should go in the next HOA newsletter. Linda looked like she was short-circuiting. The kind of full-body stillness that comes right before someone punches a wall or bursts into tears. I haven't done anything wrong, she whispered. Of course not, I said, grinning. That's why the apology will be so vague. No mention of the scratch. Just, you know, a new era of cooperation. Mutual respect. Listening to residents. That sort of thing. It was the look in her eyes I'll never forget. The slow dawning horror of someone who realized she'd lost, publicly and irrevocably, but had no way out that didn't cost her everything she'd built. And I wasn't even finished yet. There's a moment in every great chess game when your opponent realizes the queen's been pinned, the king's exposed, and there's not a damn thing they can do to stop the checkmate. That was Linda, standing in her driveway, clipboard clutched like a crucifix, face frozen in a grimace somewhere between horror and heartburn. A police report, she asked, voice barely above a whisper. For a small scratch? Insurance requirement, I said casually. They're sticklers for protocol these days. They need timestamps, photo evidence, security footage, you know, standard stuff. Each word dropped like a brick in her stomach. And besides, I added, property damage is a pattern thing, right? What if this happens again? Better to have it documented. Could help other residents. Linda's internal temperature dropped 10 degrees. For someone who spent years controlling people with violation threats and gossip, the idea of her being the subject of an official investigation was deliciously devastating. Maybe we should discuss this inside, she mumbled, eyes flicking nervously to the neighboring houses. The Patterson kids are always running around. I'd hate for them to hear. Oh, I don't mind, I said brightly. I'm sure they'd love to know their HOA president is tackling vandalism head-on. Literally. She winced. Fine, she muttered, voice flat. What do you want? That was it. No pretense. No posturing. She didn't ask if she'd done something wrong. She knew. She was just bargaining with the devil now, and I had horns, a smile, and a pristine repair estimate. I want my car fixed, I said. Professionally. At a BMW certified shop. Full paint correction, factory color match, everything. Done, she said through clenched teeth. And I want a public statement, I added. In the HOA newsletter. Apologizing for any aggressive enforcement practices. No car mentions. Just a little note to say you'll be a bit more neighborly moving forward. Her eye twitched again. I was starting to think it was a stress reflex. That's not. I can't say I did something I didn't do. Oh, Linda, I said gently. You don't have to say anything specific. Just that you've reflected on your role. That community means listening. That mutual respect is important. You know values. Her silence stretched like old gum. Look, I continued. I've already spoken to Jake. He saw you. Mrs. Patterson was outside watering her flowers. Pretty sure her Ring camera caught the whole thing. And let's not forget your own little Fort Knox up there. She flinched again, visibly. Her eyes widened, lips parted, and for a fleeting moment, she looked like a deflated party balloon still clinging to the ceiling. How do you know that? She whispered. I leaned in just enough to twist the knife. Because I made a few calls. Turns out, when the HOA president starts playing fast and loose with the rules, people open up. You've got more enemies than you think, Linda. It wasn't true. Well, not all of it. I'd only spoken to Jake. But it didn't matter. She believed it. Because deep down, she knew she'd pissed off half the neighborhood at some point between fining people for mailbox height and threatening to ban inflatable Halloween decor. She nodded slowly. Fine. Fix the car. Write the note. One more thing, I said, holding up a finger. I want you to oversee the repair process. Personally. What? You're the president. Best to ensure that community funds are used correctly, right? You'll pick me up Tuesday, drive me to the dealership, handle payment, and make sure the job's done right. Her soul visibly left her body. You could almost hear the windows shut down sound. Is that really? Yes, I said. Or I file the report, send the video footage, and let the board know you offered hush money to avoid an HOA scandal. She looked like she'd swallowed a cactus. Fine, she said. I'll be there at 8:30. Tuesday. Perfect, I said, giving her my brightest grin. Oh, and Linda? She turned, defeated. No clipboard. The twitch came back. Harder. Tuesday morning dawned like it was about to witness a historical event. I was up before my alarm, dressed like I was going to a job interview conducted by Karma herself. I even made coffee in a travel mug labeled HOA, Horrors of Authority, a gift from Jake that I suddenly appreciated more than life itself. At precisely 8:30, Linda's beige Civic rolled up my driveway like it was approaching the gallows. She didn't honk. She didn't get out. She just sat there, hands at 10 and 2, staring straight ahead like she was prepping for her own eulogy. I strolled out, coffee in hand, sunglasses on, and greeted her like a barista seeing their least favorite customer. Good morning, Linda. Lovely day for an accountability field trip, isn't it? She didn't respond with words, just a low grunt that could have been hello, or possibly the sound of her soul crumbling into dust. She looked like she hadn't slept in 3 days. I half expected to find claw marks on her clipboard where her dignity used to live. The ride to Munich Motors was silent except for the soft hum of her Civic's underpowered engine and my pointed small talk. So, any fun violations today? Any rogue bird feeders causing chaos? Her knuckles turned white on the steering wheel. We pulled into the dealership, and I swear the BMW showroom looked extra glossy that day, like even the car's new justice was being served. A service manager named Tom greeted us, clipboard in hand, an actual useful clipboard, mind you, and took one look at the damage before nodding sympathetically. Yep, gonna need a full side panel respray, blending, buff, sealant. We'll have it looking like it just rolled off the production line. I turned to Linda. Isn't that nice? They take quality so seriously here. She nodded once, like her neck had a weight limit. Tom continued. Total comes to $3,247, including tax. If you've got a card on file. Linda pulled out her wallet like it physically pained her. She handed Tom her credit card as though it were an organ donation. And don't worry, I said to Tom. Linda here is just making sure the HOA's discretionary funds are spent responsibly. She's all about oversight. Tom smiled politely. Linda looked like she wanted to eat her own dashboard. After the payment went through, Tom confirmed the car would be ready by Friday. As we walked back to her Civic, Linda finally spoke. I wrote the statement, she said. The one for the newsletter. I sipped my coffee. Fantastic. Want me to proofread it? No. Suit yourself. Just make sure it's got that sincere, humble energy you're so famous for. Her sigh was audible over traffic. The drive home was quiet again. Not the peaceful kind. More the, I just signed a truce with my mortal enemy kind. I actually felt bad for her for a second. Then I remembered she keyed my car like it was a personal vendetta and tried to extort me over a trash can. By Thursday morning, the newsletter hit every inbox in the neighborhood like a confetti cannon of poetic justice. Dear residents of Maple Heights, I want to acknowledge that I may have been overly zealous in some of my recent enforcement practices. Moving forward, I will strive to approach my duties with greater consideration for community collaboration, mutual respect, and transparency. I am always open to constructive feedback and committed to fostering a more cooperative neighborhood environment. Linda Hutchinson, HOA President. It was glorious. My phone exploded. Jake texted. She actually did it. I'm framing this. Carol wrote. Linda apologized? What alternate universe is this? And my personal favorite, from someone in 61B. I read it 3 times just to savor it. Linda had gone from feared neighborhood tyrant to reluctant, clipboard-less collaborator. And all it cost her was $3,247, public humility, and any remaining sense of invincibility. Friday afternoon, I picked up my car. Tom was right. It looked flawless. Not a single sign it had ever been vandalized. Hell, it might have looked better than the day I got it. And as I pulled back into my driveway, freshly repaired BMW gleaming in the sun, Linda walked by. No clipboard, no Civic, just her, jogging shoes, and what looked like the smallest, most reluctant nod of acknowledgement I've ever seen. Victory didn't need fireworks. Just good paint, better insurance, and one very uncomfortable HOA Karen learning that sometimes the only violation worth worrying about is basic human decency. By Saturday, the newsletter had circulated far and wide, and let me tell you, Maple Heights had never been so alive. You'd have thought someone had installed a freedom fountain in the cul-de-sac. Lawn chairs came out. Neighbors talked. People who hadn't said more than morning in 6 years were suddenly organizing bake sales and sharing hedge trimmer tips like they were founding a co-op. Apparently, all it took to revive the community was one HOA tyrant being dethroned and force-fed humility in 12-point Times New Roman. Around 6 p.m. that evening, I heard a knock on my door. It was Jake, grinning like he'd just seen a miracle, holding a bottle of red wine and a pizza box. "Thought you might want to celebrate," he said. "You're officially the HOA Slayer now." I opened the door, smirking. Does that come with a cape or just community adoration? Jake walked in like he owned the place, dropped the pizza on the kitchen counter, and popped the wine like it was New Year's Eve. "You don't get it," he said, flopping onto a stool. "You're a legend. I haven't seen Linda walk around without that cursed clipboard since the Obama administration." "She still has it," I said, "but I think she's afraid it'll burst into flames if she uses it again." Jake nearly choked on his wine. "Did you read the group chat?" "Group chat?" I asked. "Oh yeah," he said. "You've been at it." He handed me his phone. The chat was titled Maple Heights Resistance. I scrolled. "Carol, did you guys see the newsletter?" "David, she actually apologized. I never thought I'd live to see the day." "Nina, this calls for a block party. Or a parade. I'll bake cookies." "Sam, 61B can we make I Survived Linda t-shirts?" It went on and on. Tales of past grievances poured in like therapy with a side of popcorn. Jake leaned back, folding his arms. "You have no idea what you've done. She's fined people for everything from grass being too enthusiastic to Halloween skeletons being aesthetically aggressive. She once fined Mrs. Patel for having a wind chime," he added. "Said it was auditory pollution. The woman's been running this place like North Korea with slightly better landscaping." And that's when it hit me. This hadn't just been about a scratch. Or my car. This had been about freedom. I was Spartacus. With a BMW. The messages kept rolling in. "Carol, she fined my mother $500 for a decorative birdhouse. You're a hero." "David, she once threatened to get my kid arrested for skateboarding in our driveway." "Nina, she tried to ban chalk drawings." Chalk drawings. By the end of the night, I had 17 messages from neighbors thanking me. Some were heartfelt. Some read like war stories. All of them made one thing clear. Linda had built her HOA kingdom on fear, and now that someone had stood up to her, the whole neighborhood was starting to realize just how thin her power really was. The best one came at 9:47 p.m. Unknown number. "This is Linda. The dealership appointment is confirmed for Tuesday at 9 a.m. I'll pick you up at 8:30. I stared at it, letting the moment marinate. Linda Hutchinson, HOA president, neighborhood overlord, destroyer of joy, was now my personal chauffeur. My unpaid Uber. The woman who once fined a man for painting his porch the wrong shade of eggshell was going to drive me, willingly, to the dealership where she'd be paying for her own vandalism. I replied, "Perfect. See you bright and early." Her response came back instantly. Thumbs up. Even her emoji looked like it needed a Xanax. I sipped the last of my wine, leaned back, and looked at my phone as another message pinged in from the group chat. "Jake, we should nominate you for HOA president." And honestly, for the first time, I didn't immediately say no. Tuesday morning arrived like the encore to a rock concert. My BMW was ready to return to glory, and Linda? She was about to complete her transformation from clipboard tyrant to involuntary chauffeur. At 8:30 sharp, her beige Civic rolled into my driveway like a hearse arriving at its own funeral. She didn't honk. She didn't get out. Just sat there staring ahead, dead-eyed, hands clenched on the steering wheel like it might try to escape if she let go. I climbed in like I was stepping into an Uber Black. "Morning, Linda. Beautiful day for closure, huh?" She grunted in response. If the tension in that Civic were any thicker, it would have required a chainsaw and a motivational speaker to cut through it. I cheerfully narrated the ride. "So, did you see the updated community group chat? People are loving the new HOA tone. Really refreshing. A lot of thank you messages flying around. You've really made an impact." She didn't respond. Her eye twitched once. We arrived at Munich Motors, and she trudged behind me like a prisoner escorting herself to processing. The dealership staff greeted me like royalty. Apparently, they remembered the dramatic quote request and Linda's frantic follow-up. "Mr. Carver," Tom the service manager said with a grin, "we've got her all cleaned up and ready for inspection." He led us to the bay, and there she was, my Alpine white M3, gleaming like it had just driven off the showroom floor in slow motion, possibly while angels sang. Not a single scratch. Not a smudge. The repair job was immaculate. "Flawless," I said, trailing a hand along the panel that had once borne the wrath of Linda's house keys. "OEM finish, perfect blend. Tom, you're a miracle worker." Linda handed over her card again, face pale and expression blank, as Tom ran it for the final payment. $3,247, right on the dot. The only number sweeter than that was the zero she'd assigned me in her original made-up parking fine. On the drive home, Linda finally spoke, voice hoarse. "The newsletter goes out this Thursday." I nodded. "Can't wait. Did you include the bit about listening to residents and embracing feedback?" "Yes." "And the part about mutual respect?" "Yes." "Did you bold it?" She didn't answer. I took that as a yes. By Thursday evening, the whole neighborhood was buzzing again. The newsletter had dropped, and Linda's statement of community realignment had landed like the Gettysburg Address, if Lincoln had been forced to write it with a gun to his head by the people of Maple Heights. From the desk of Linda Hutchinson, HOA president. Over the past few weeks, I've reflected on how our HOA operates and how we can better serve the diverse and valued voices of our residents. Moving forward, I commit to a more collaborative, open, and respectful approach. I welcome constructive feedback and hope to foster a community built on cooperation, not conflict. Linda Hutchinson. Jake texted me. "Is it weird I framed this?" "Because I framed this." Carol. "I just read it 3 times. Feels like Christmas came early." Someone even printed it out and taped it to the community bulletin board at the clubhouse with a smiley face sticker. But the real moment of triumph came Friday afternoon. I was out front, washing my newly pristine BMW in the driveway, because of course I was. The sun was hitting just right, water cascading off the hood in a way that would have made a car commercial director cry. And then, Linda appeared. She was walking. No Civic. No clipboard. Just a small reusable grocery bag, some sneakers, and a carefully neutral expression. She slowed slightly as she passed. Our eyes met. No words were exchanged. And then, she nodded. It wasn't much. Not a full bow, not a handshake. But it was a nod. An acknowledgement. An understanding. And in suburbia, that's basically a treaty signing. I nodded back. Because sometimes, justice doesn't need a courtroom or a gavel. Sometimes it just needs a scratched car, a clipboard-happy tyrant, and one resident too stubborn to play by their rigged rules. So, to recap, Linda tried to vandalize me into submission. Instead, she paid over $3,000, issued a public apology, chauffeured me around town, and was dethroned by her own arrogance. Meanwhile, I got my dream car restored, gained the respect of my neighbors, and unintentionally ignited a suburban rebellion. Now the HOA runs a little smoother. People speak up more. And Linda? Well, she still patrols the neighborhood, but the clipboard's gone, and so is the tyrant smile. As for me, my BMW's perfect. The neighbors wave. And every time I park, dead center between the lines, I do it with the confidence of a man who took on the HOA and lived to polish the victory. Thank you for being with us. Please share in the comments where you are watching from and whether you liked everything, and see you next time.